Welcome to Graceful Healing, a podcast to get straight talk about healing and living again. My name is Maureen Lake. I'm a holistic health coach, speaker, author, and thyroid disease fighter. Each week, I'll be bringing you graceful conversations to inspire you to seek new ways to hit the reset button to catapult your health and vitality to new levels. Listen in and open your heart to all the new possibilities. Are you ready? Let's do this. Kelli Reese is such an amazing woman. I first met Kelli when we were both at the Author's Castle, having published our first book together in a cohort with Angela Lauria. And as luck would have it, I was able to work with her one-on-one almost 2 summers ago. Words cannot begin to express the journey she took me on, starting with reading my Akashic records and helping me heal from some things I was holding on to for far too long. And I didn't even realize it. Kelli works with women in so many ways. She has an amazing retreat this year in Tulum, working with others on the sacred soul journey. She also works with women who feel stuck in their relationships. She helps them find answers to many questions that lay hidden for so many of us. Her Clear Heart program has helped many find a new path to happiness. Listen to my dear friend Kelli as she shares her journey starting 17 years ago to today. I'm telling you, it's powerful. You don't want to miss it. Hello, everybody. Today I have the amazing Kelli Reese on my show today. And I have to tell you, full disclosure, I worked with her about 1.5 years ago when she was doing a lot of work with Akashic records. And her program literally changed the trajectory of my life, and I am not exaggerating. I was able to look at my past, deal with it, and move forward with my life in a whole new way. So I'm so excited to share Kelli with you because I'm telling you, this is one amazing, powerful woman. So welcome, Kelli. I'm so happy to have you.
Oh, what an introduction. Thank you, Maureen. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, good. So I can't wait for people to hear about your personal story and the amazing journey it's taken you on to where you are today. Like if you could help us connect the dots and figure that out, that would be amazing.
Yes. I'm not sure where to start because it actually encompasses so much. Like my past has really led me to where I am today. Mm-hmm. I think the most profound thing that's happened so far in my journey is that I have got clear on what it is I wanted for myself. And that led to a bunch of different actions mm-hmm. that I was required to take in order to get where I wanted to be. The first was I walked away from a 17-year career where I was running, at the end of that career, I was running a $34 million organization. Wow. And I walked away from that job, a 6-figure job, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I had no clear plan. I just knew I couldn't stay there any longer. Mm-hmm. And that people know that pain. If you're in a place where you're no longer meant to be, the universe it gets to a point where it's like pounding on your door. Your soul is screaming for you to get moving. And
that's so true.
Mine was doing that.
Yeah. Is this when you were living in New York?
When I was living in California.
In California. Actually. Okay.
Yeah. This was in 2015, so it wasn't that long ago.
Oh, wow.
And so I walked away from that job without a clear path ahead. I just knew that if my soul was screaming that loud for me to get the hell out, that I would have to trust where I was going to be led. And so it led me on the journey of really diving into the place that I call the void, which is this unknown abyss that, it feels like there's no roadmap. There's nothing that's showing you where to go. And there's no light in this dark tunnel. And it's, the void is that place between what was and what will be. Mm-hmm. And we can get stuck there for years. And I was not about to be stuck there for years. And I knew that the way forward was to really connect to my heart and do my best to stay out of my head. But because my head is not a good neighborhood to get lost in.
Well, I can just imagine being stuck in that void, how scary that is.
It feels What happens there is you get there and you think, okay, I've made the choices to be here and now I have to move forward. But really all you want to do is run backwards because everything behind you is familiar, but you know that's not an option. And the thing that people don't often realize about the void, about the unknown place, is that when you're in like the indecision, when you're in the place of like trying to figure out what your next step is or what you're doing, you're already in the void. And that's the scariest part for people to realize, but it's also the most enlightening part, because if you're already there, then your choice is to move forward, you know?
Right.
It's like you're trying to avoid something that you're already in. You're already surrounded by it.
Wow.
So when I walked away, you know, it started that process for me of really getting back in touch with how I wanted to live my life as far as my career was concerned as well, because I was no longer in a career that aligned with my heart. And I knew that on a deeper level. I loved the work and there were things that I loved about it, but I knew that there was below the layers of like, this is okay, it's fine, it worked.
Right.
Below those layers, there was definitely just unsettled, something's missing kind of feeling. And I had to listen to that, you know? And so I really got in touch with my heart and I decided to align my work with the spiritual path that I'd been on for decades. And, you know, I started doing readings for people. That's really the only thing that I knew when I walked away, is that I wanted to do readings for people. That's not necessarily what every executive woman walks away to do in the world.
And tell us the spiritual readings you were doing, because this is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and I still do those readings today. So I utilize the Akashic records for people that are really clarifying. And I'm telling people what their soul already knows, but important things that help you have validation and clarity on your path. It's, you know, what you're doing in this lifetime, what you're doing in between lifetimes, what your soul message is, your soul purpose, your life lessons. What are your soul gifts, and how to utilize those soul gifts in this lifetime. It's information that people maybe haven't considered on their path. And so I love it. And the Akashic records are, for people that don't know, the Akashic records, it's an energetic place, and it holds all this, it stores this information about our soul's journey, our path throughout its entire existence. There's a lot of other information in the Akashic records. That's the place that I access to do past life healing and to do the readings for people.
And I know personally that's what you did with me, and it was so life-changing and just helped me understand not only things about myself, but things about other people in my life. You can't even formulate and put it into words. At least I can't, because it was such a foreign idea for me. And then once I had the reading, and as time went on and I could understand different aspects of it, I'm telling you, it just is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, that's the words. The words that I hear after the readings are validation, clarity, powerful. And, you know, sometimes people are in tears just because it hits them in their heart and their soul.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad to know that you're still doing that, because it's such a huge gift that you have to be able to access that. It really is.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a big part of my work.
Cool. Okay, so now you started your journey. You're still like in the void. What happened?
I'm still in the void. Yes. So I learned also too, I don't slow down very well. I'm walking away from a high stress job and deciding to do something different. But, you know, I also decided to take some time for myself too, but I don't know how to stop so well. I'm a creator. And so I was organizing my spice drawer. I was doing all these different things to keep my mind occupied. And it was like, this is not enough, you know. I did go on a life-changing trip to Tulum with two of my girlfriends. And I had no idea when one of my friends, she texted me and said, do you want to go to Tulum? And I was like, yep. But I didn't know where it was. And, you know, when I found out it was in Mexico, I was relieved, because I've been traveling to Mexico for a really long time. I'd just never gone to the Caribbean or the Yucatan area. And so I went for 8 days to Tulum, and that trip changed the trajectory of my life. And it was an incredible trip that my heart blew open in Tulum. And I knew when I was leaving Tulum that I would be back. I live in Tulum now, for people who are listening. And it was quite a journey to get back here. And so I remember clearly on the drive back to the airport, I was thinking, if there was any way I could convince my friends to stop the car and just dump me on the side of the highway, I would do it now and I'll figure it out. It was that kind of feeling, like I have to be here.
Wow.
I was crying in the airport. And I stood at the top of the escalator before I went into security, and I just like looked back towards the direction of Tulum, because it's in Cancun is 90 miles north of Tulum, and I'm looking towards Tulum, and I was like, I will be back within the year. Which took me 18 months to be back, but I had to do quite a few things before I could actually come back to Tulum with a clear understanding of what I was doing here. And so I went back. I opened a business with somebody. So I co-owned a business. I got that up and running. It was like a community market within this small town. The market it was closed, or it was closed earlier. Somebody reopened it and they weren't doing a very good job of managing it and running it. And so I partnered with somebody, got it up and running, and it's still going. And eventually I sold my half of that business. And then I also wrote my first book, The Destiny Roadmap. And during the writing of that book, and that was all about what to do if you're in a soul-sucking job and you need to figure out how to walk away. And so while I'm writing that book about what it's like to be in the void for your job, I realized I was in the void for my relationship, which was really challenging, because here I am writing about like how to work your way through the void and master, that really grasp onto that unknown place and trust in it. And I was walking back into the void for my relationship, that I couldn't deny the feelings that I was having any longer about, I had just been asking myself a bunch of inconvenient questions for a number of years about my partner, my husband, and the relationship itself. It was just like, I couldn't, as I was growing on my spiritual path, I couldn't reconcile the like uncomfortable feeling or the disconnection that I felt about the relationship. It was undeniable. I still loved him, and I still do, but I wasn't sure that I was still in love with him. And I was on a spiritual path and he wasn't. And that was the biggest factor for me. And we weren't growing. So, there was this divide just kept getting bigger and bigger the more that I grew on my spiritual path. And I had to figure out for me how much that mattered. Did it matter that he was on a spiritual path? And there was a lot of factors that I went through in order to figure that out. I finished my first book and I started that program that you ended up doing, which is now called the Connect program. And then I wrote a second book. It was called The Relationship Roadmap. So the first one was The Destiny Roadmap. And then I wrote about what it's like to be in a void for your relationship. And that was a very healing book for me and provided a lot of clarity for me as well. I wrote that book in Tulum, and that's one of the reasons that I came to Tulum, to get some clarity and understanding about all of that. I knew when I moved to Tulum, I had already had a conversation with my husband at the time, and we talked about, where our relationship was. And I told him what I felt I needed. And he truthfully and honestly and very beautifully said, I don't know, if I'm fearful that I can't give that to you. And I said, maybe that's the kind of fear that you're supposed to push through. And he said, maybe, but I'm never going to do yoga with you or meditate with you. And he listed off these things, and not necessarily that he has to do those things, but those things matter dearly to me. And so we had a really profound conversation, and he said, I just want you to be happy. And I was like, I want you to be happy. And as soon as I said that, I realized like I was trying to turn him into somebody he wasn't, and that's not fair to him, Right. And so I walked away from my marriage. It was a 15-year marriage. We've been together for 17 years, and I moved to Tulum, and that was August of 2017. Wow. So I've been in Tulum since then, with lots of travels all over the world, which is another thing that I wanted to do, was travel. And so I've been traveling, and I lead sacred soul journeys for women in lots of different places. And there's one coming up here in Tulum. And those journeys are all about the journey into ourself, into our heart, and getting to know ourselves even deeper and what we want, so that we can show up in our relationships in our life as a whole person. Wow. So, yeah. I bet. Well, just everything that you've talked about, I think it's so common for women that end up on a spiritual path, and their partner or their husband
might not be following that path to really just grow apart. And it's hard and it's gut-wrenching to go through that. But sometimes you do just have to, I mean, who really can stay together for 40 plus years when you really stop to think about it? It's not an easy thing to do, especially when your paths go separate ways and you're just kind of living in a status quo where nothing really changes.
Right. And some women in my program stay with their partners, but they stay in a way that they show up in their relationship completely differently than they ever have, because they go through this process in the program of just breaking down the barrier that they have around their own heart. And so that they know what they want, they know what they need. And so then they can make a clear decision. Like nobody's forced, there's no forcing in the program to like make a decision. All I say in the program is that you'll have clarity. And that's everything. And they do. And some people end up walking away, but some people end up staying, and they stay with like this renewed sense of grounding and just connection.
That's beautiful.
And they find out what matters to them. Does it matter if your partner is going to meditate with you? Does it matter if they're on a spiritual path? It might not. Or it might mean everything, but having that clarity is really important, because we stay in those inconvenient questions, I call them, what's going on here? Am I still in love with him? Is this just me?
Right. Because
it'll get better.
Yeah, you do start doubting a lot of things for sure.
Right. Yeah.
So is your retreat connected to your program? Do a lot of the women that are in your program also go on your retreat, or?
The two are not intertwined, and the Clear Heart program is geared towards this like focus on gaining clarity in your long-term relationship. And the Sacred Soul Journeys are about connecting to who you are deeper and on a soul level. It's what I call it is the ultimate spiritual upgrade.
I can just imagine. What are some of the activities and things that you do?
The women that are coming into the group now, they are coming to Tulum. We're going to be staying in a beautiful private villa with a private chef and locally prepared cuisine. It's on a lagoon here in the Tulum area. And we're going to be going to the Cobal ruins and climbing one of the tallest pyramids in this area, the Mayan ruins. And we're going to go and visit some cenotes, which are underground, like sinkholes that the tops have caved in. Some of them are still underground, but they're just incredibly beautiful, and this crystal clear water, and so refreshing. The humidity of the jungle. We're also going to visit another ruins that's in the area, some other Mayan ruins in the area, as well as take a private tour of this gallery that's located in the middle of the jungle outside of Tulum. And then there's going to be this incredible workshops and tons of space and time to integrate everything. And we're also going to be taking part in a sacred temazcal, which is a Mayan sweat lodge. It's not like a traditional sweat lodge that we know of, like the Native American ones. There's some different elements to it, but it's very powerful. And then there's some other surprises too.
Wow. It sounds incredible. How many days is it?
It's a full week.
Full week. Wow.
Yeah. Tuesday to Tuesday.
I bet it's life-changing.
It is. Yeah. People come back. I had one woman who said, I've been on women's retreats before where they hand you your ass and send you home. I was like, not this one. I was like, we hand you your open heart and then give you tools to make sure that you head home with this like incredible connection.
Yeah.
And upgraded for sure.
That's amazing. And it's incredible to think that, you left your high-powered job and then just in a few years where you've ended up.
This isn't the life that I chose. I didn't even know I wanted this life when I was sitting in my job stressed out. It was hard to see what was possible. I had to make room by letting go in order to allow all of this to come in. And believe me, entrepreneurship is like taking a, deep dive into your own growth and healing. So, it just puts you on a path of like having to face everything.
Yeah. So coming from that entrepreneurship kind of corporate world to where you are today, what kind of mindset shifts did you have to make? I mean, they had to have been substantial to be able to change so much about your life.
Well, it's pretty it's pretty different when somebody hands you a check every couple weeks. There's some security in that. So you have to be really comfortable with the fact that you may not know where the next pay is coming from in the beginning. When you're building your business, you're creating a foundation for your business to be laid upon, and that takes time and money and investment. And I think one of the things that I've always been dedicated to my spiritual growth, and I haven't been afraid to do that deep internal work that it takes. If I stop growing, like in my relationship or in my job, I ask myself, like, what's going on here? If I'm not growing, then I need to figure out, like, where's the park and where's the next place going to lead me to more growth? Because that's what I believe our souls are doing here. We're really learning and growing on our paths. And so in the beginning of building a business, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a big trust factor, and there's putting money out before you have that money. And I've always invested in coaches and had somebody who I've relied upon in order to, like, whether it's a business coach and someone who's doing energy work, that kind of thing. So I'm a big proponent of coaching. Yeah, because we all need somebody to help us on our path or see what we can't see and support us, hold us accountable, that kind of thing. I do all that work for others. But I also need it for me as well. Because I can trip myself up. I can still get in my own way no matter what I'm doing.
Oh, I think we all can. I agree with you 100%. You need that person just, I don't know, has some insight and some ability to see things that for whatever reason you're kind of dark about, at least for me. And then it's like, oh yeah, that makes such perfect sense.
Yes.
Why wasn't I able to come up with that? But often you just need somebody else to point things out and help you go down your path.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I know that you've traveled worldwide and you've spent some time in Bali and all different locations and over in Europe. And so I'm asking you to really think long range, and maybe you don't even have an answer to this question, but knowing that your next retreat is going to be in Tulum, are you already thinking about the one after that and where that one might be located? Because it seems like you go to certain areas for certain reasons. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I like to go to sacred places where there's energy, where there's some sense of spirituality. So where there's a deep connection, So the next one, and I co-host them with a partner named Peggy, Dr. Peggy Farmer. She's the spiritual mentor that I've been working with for a number of years. And so we've partnered on the Sacred Soul Journeys, and we're talking about Oaxaca and Peru and a couple other places, but we have not made any decision as of yet. This might be the last one I do in Tulum. I planned 3 in Tulum last year, 2 of them for other coaches with their clientele, and then one that I was also involved in and personally. And that was actually for another coach as well. But I think Tulum is changing, and not all of it's positive, but some of it's still amazing. But this might be the last one that I do in Tulum. We'll have to wait and see. But it's not on the itinerary in the near future.
Okay.
So I keep telling people if they're interested in Tulum, they need to come now.
Yeah, exactly. And so just before I let you go, Kelli, I love to hear, just for my own selfish reasons, like your affinity with the trees, because one of your journeys that you went on had to do with seeking out redwood trees and different trees. And I find that so fascinating. So can you talk just a little bit about that?
I can, yes. Thank you for asking about it. This is something that came up. It's been a lifelong connection that I've had with the California coast redwoods. I grew up in California, in Northern California, and I used to play up in the La Honda Hills and play above the beach where there's giant, beautiful redwoods and very magical forests. And even when I was living in New York in the early 90s, there was a lot of stuff going on in Humboldt County with the redwoods, and people, were working hard to protect the old growth forests. And I remember thinking to myself, if I lived in California still, I would be up there doing that, but my life took a different path. But I've always had this ongoing connection and love for the redwoods. And eventually I ended up moving back to California, living in Humboldt County, so about 5 or 6 hours north of San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And that's where a number of old growth forests are still flourishing. There's only about 3% of the old growth left right now. So there isn't that much, but there's quite a few. Yeah, there's a lot of redwoods up in Northern California. And so I had ended up living in a house with my husband and in the middle of a redwood forest on 6 acres. And I knew when my foot hit that ground at that place, I knew that was going to be our house. And I turned to my husband and just said, we're going to live here. And he was like, well, maybe we should take a look at it first. I was like, you can look at it. I'll go with you, but this is our house. This is where we're going to live. And I connected immediately with the trees. And so at one point, it was like, I knew I wanted to get back to California and I knew I wanted to live amongst the redwoods. We were living in Colorado before we moved back to California, and we had moved from North Carolina to Montana to Colorado, and then Colorado. We knew when we were there that it wasn't where we were going to stay. Mm-hmm. And, my husband had said to me at the time, he said, if, I'm happy to move again, but I don't want to move after this. So you better be sure where you want to move. And I could honor that and respect it because he had followed my career and my job to a bunch of different states, and he had to reset up his business every single time. And so I said, I already know where I want to live. I either want to live next to Mount Shasta or in the redwood forest. And so he's like, well, let's go out and take a look at the area. And so we booked our tickets to go see the area. And then someone contacted me from the job I ended up taking and said, do you want to interview for a position? And I said, yes, that'd be great. And it was right in Humboldt County and like redwood country. And the interview was the day after our flights arrived. So I was like, this is meant to be. Yeah. So I went, ended up getting that job. They helped move us out there. And then we bought a house and then moved to that house in the redwoods after that. And so, it felt like I finally found a place where I was going to stay. And so I was really surprised when, I can hear the redwoods and have conversations with them. I talk to otherworldly beings in the work that I do, and the redwoods are another aspect of energy that I can connect with. And so it was very clear that I was going to be leaving, and I heard very clearly it's time to go. And I was like, excuse me, where am I going? It took me a long time to get here.
Yeah. Only to find out I'm leaving.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second, I thought we orchestrated all this, And it was at the same time that I was selling the business and my husband and I were separating. And so it was just another piece. And what I heard too was, we'll be with you on the journey. And so I thought, okay, so I guess I'll just maintain this connection to Humboldt County and this land and be able to connect with the redwoods. And so I moved to Tulum and then went on vacation to Kauai with friends. And when we were in Kauai, I came across this redwood forest, California coast redwoods that were up in Waimea Canyon. And it's like, what are these redwoods doing here? This is so weird. I had no idea there were redwoods in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And perfect climate there. And then I went with business partner at the time to England the next month later. And one of the places that we planned on our trip was in southern England. There was a giant redwood forest.
For heaven's sakes.
Yeah. And that was at Schumacher College in Dartington. And we had stayed on this campus there. And on the campus, I walked into a gate and there was a whole redwood forest there. I was like, this is really weird. What are these redwoods doing here in England?
Really?
Then then I got back. And when I was in England, I had intel basically that I was going to be going to Italy. And I was like, okay, can I go home to Tulum for a while and take a break? Because I had been in England for a couple of weeks. And when I got back, it was very clear, nope, you're going to Italy. So I booked a trip to Italy, and I didn't really know why I was going to Italy, but someone in England had shown me a place that I knew I was meant to visit as soon as I saw it. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to trust, because all I kept hearing was Italy. Italy was everywhere.
Wow.
So I went to Italy, and I ended up working with a woman who I found on the internet. She was doing a retreat, and the retreat started like 5 hours after I arrived in Milan. And I was like, well, obviously I'm supposed to meet her. And then when I got on the call with her, she was like, where did you find my information on this retreat? Because I took it off of the internet like 2 months ago. And I was like, it came up on Google. So neither of us really knew how that happened, but we knew that we were meant to work together. So I worked with her, and then the second day, or actually the first day I was in Italy, I was coming out of the Alps because I was in northern Italy, and I heard redwoods, and I was like, come on, there are no redwoods in Italy. So I went online and I looked up redwoods of Italy, and sure enough, there was actually like a whole map of somebody has a site for the California coast redwoods in Italy, and there was 2 redwoods 40 minutes away. So of course I got in my car and drove over there, and I was just in tears, like, this is crazy. And then my cell phone wasn't working, and the next day I had to go into Turin, and on my way back from Turin, I was just driving through this little town, and I looked over to the left. Something forced me to look over, and I see this California coast redwood just sitting there on the edge of the parking lot. And I was like, come on. So I pulled over and I sat down at that base of that tree, and I felt amazing because I'm connecting with all these redwoods. And then I was in Italy, but I instantly started crying, and I was like, this is kind of strange. Why am I crying? I didn't have any reason to cry. And then I realized it was the tree, and I was feeling the energy of the tree. So then I started connecting on a deeper level with the trees there. And yeah, it led me on this 2,000-mile journey all over. I was there for a month. I was in Italy for a month, and I went all over and saw trees in Lake Como, Lake Maggiore, different parts of the Piemonte Valley, in Liguria and northern Tuscany. And I had messages and connections with all of the trees, almost all of them.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I just went to Bali for 3 months. And on the way back, I stopped in New Zealand because there was a grove of redwoods there that I connected with. That one I knew about ahead of time. I planned it. On my way back, I'm going to go to New Zealand and visit this redwood grove. Wow. So now it's a thing. I connect with the redwoods and talk with them, and many of the groves are stressed out, and so that's what I talk to them about, and I share that information with people and help them reconnect with trees in general, because that's what, we all have this connection to nature and the forest and trees that we don't often remember. And nature is incredibly healing for us, but what people don't often understand is as healing as it is for us to be out in nature when the trees are recognized and seen for their beauty and what they bring to us, their grounding energy and their healing energy. It heals them as well. It heals the trees. Wow. A lot of the trees, especially the redwoods, people don't often recognize the tree as a living, breathing entity.
That's amazing.
And that's really what they want. They want to be seen. They want to, if you're taking pictures with a tree, or, especially in the redwoods, they get a lot of pictures taken. Ask permission and then thank the tree. It's like acknowledge that it's a living, breathing being. Especially the redwoods are so wise. There's a lot of trees that are incredibly wise, though. I mean, especially our ancient trees, they hold a pattern and understanding for everything that's happened here on this planet. So they're pretty wise.
That's just beautiful. I'm like, I don't even know what to ask after this. Because on 2 fronts, it's amazing that the trees have taken you on this international journey, number 1. But number 2, I'm like so in awe of your ability to do it. I mean, there'd be so many reasons to talk yourself out of it. Or, I mean, I don't know where you get that. I couldn't ignore the fact that these trees kept showing. I mean, I clearly heard we'll be with you on your journey, and then I see all these trees. And it's like what floored me was walking into the redwood forest in England, because the day before I told my business partner at the time, I said, I feel the redwoods. It's really strange. I was like, I feel like they're trying to connect with me. And then the next day we went on this tour of the campus and we walked into the redwood forest, and I was like, oh, excuse me? What is this forest doing here? Oh, it's just amazing. So maybe that'll be your next book. Gosh, it's just incredible.
I am in the process of writing my 3rd book right now.
Oh, good.
There are definitely the stories of the redwoods are in there.
Oh, awesome. Well, I can't wait to read this one too, then. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Gosh, to think that you have a connection with something like that and it's just taking you all around the world. I just find that, I don't know, the spiritual piece of it is like incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. And the message is clear that as we heal ourselves, the planet heals, and then the trees heal, but that the trees also have a very big part to play in our lives if we allow them.
Oh, Kelli, thank you so much for spending this 35, 40 minutes with us.
Thank you, Maureen.
It was wonderful. I have one final question. Sorry.
Okay.
I ask everybody this question. But if you could give, like in one sentence, if you could give your younger self some advice, like if you could go back in time and whatever time it might be and talk to Kelli, what little piece of advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now?
I would probably tell her to relax. It's all happening in divine order and we end up in an amazing place. It's all okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty stressed out kid.
That's so true.
I definitely was in search of something. I just didn't know what it was. I spent a lot of time yelling at the powers that be to just effing tell me what I'm doing on this planet so I can get the hell off. So I think I would tell my younger self, like, just wait. The ride's amazing and you have no idea what's ahead. It's so beautiful.
Oh, you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for.
Got it. You got it.
Okay. Thanks, Kelli.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you can, take a moment and give us a review. And please join the VIP room in Facebook for more discussion and insights. You can find us at Graceful Healing Podcast VIP room. See you there and see you next time.